The cake sat untouched on the kitchen table, 18 candles melting into blue frosting that had started to separate in the summer heat. Michael Carter stared at those candles, watching the wax pool around each tiny flame, and wondered why his parents had bothered with a cake at all. They'd never been the sentimental type. Barbara Carter stood by the counter, her manicured nails drumming against the granite surface, while Richard Carter loosened his tie and poured himself 3 fingers of whiskey, even though it was only 2 in the afternoon. Preparing and narrating this type of story took us long efforts and hard work, so if you're enjoying the story, please consider subscribing to our channel. "Well," Richard said, his voice carrying that particular edge Michael had learned to recognize over the years, the one that appeared when bills arrived or when Michael asked about college funds. 18 years. That's quite a milestone, isn't it, Barbara?" Barbara's laugh was brittle, like ice cracking. A milestone, indeed. She moved to the table, not to sit, but to grip the back of a chair with both hands. Her knuckles went white. "Michael, sweetheart, your father and I need to have a conversation with you. An adult conversation." Michael felt something cold settle in his stomach. The air conditioning hummed, pushing recycled air through vents that needed cleaning. Outside, someone's sprinkler system clicked on, the rhythmic chick-chick-chick of water hitting concrete, barely audible through the double-paned windows of their subdivision home. Everything looked normal. The same beige walls, the same family photos that had always felt slightly staged, the same artificial lemon scent from whatever cleaning service came on Thursdays. "Okay," Michael said slowly. He'd been expecting something, maybe a car, maybe a watch, maybe just a handshake and a "you're-on-your-own-now" speech. He hadn't expected the tension that crackled between his parents like static electricity. Richard drained half his whiskey in one swallow. "There's no easy way to say this, so I'm just going to say it. We adopted you for the money, Michael. Your biological parents, your real parents, set up a trust fund. A substantial one. We've been receiving monthly stipends for your care since you were 3 months old." The words didn't land at first. They hung in the air like moss, fluttering around without finding purchase. Michael heard them, processed them individually: adopted, money, trust fund, real parents, but couldn't make them form a complete picture. What? Barbara released the chair and crossed her arms. Her knuckles cracked. "Michael, sweetheart, your father and I need to have a conversation with you. An adult conversation." Michael felt something cold settle in his stomach. The air conditioning hummed, pushing recycled air through vents that needed cleaning. Outside, someone's sprinkler system clicked on, the rhythmic chick-chick-chick of water hitting concrete, barely audible through the double-paned windows of their subdivision home. Everything looked normal. The same beige walls, the same family photos that had always felt slightly staged, the same artificial lemon scent from whatever cleaning service came on Thursdays. "Okay," Michael said slowly. He'd been expecting something, maybe a car, maybe a watch, maybe just a handshake and a "you're-on-your-own-now" speech. He hadn't expected the tension that crackled between his parents like static electricity. Richard drained half his whiskey in one swallow. "There's no easy way to say this, so I'm just going to say it. We adopted you for the money, Michael. Your biological parents, your real parents, set up a trust fund. A substantial one. We've been receiving monthly stipends for your care since you were 3 months old." "Chirinde, real parents," Michael said, his hands gripping the edge of the table so tightly his knuckles had turned white. 20 years. Okay. This is a shock. I need a minute to process this. You received monthly payments from a trust fund to raise me. "We didn't realize how much you would turn into this kind of a rebellious teenager," Barbara said, her voice still sharp. "But We did all the good things. We sent you to good schools and you received a good education. We believed we had fulfilled our responsibilities as parents.
Today you inherit the trust directly, Barbara corrected. According to the terms our lawyer received this morning, you gain full access to your biological parents' estate on your 18th birthday. We wanted to tell you before the legal team contacts you. How considerate. Michael moved toward the front door, needing air, needing space, needing to be anywhere but in this kitchen with these people who had just reframed his entire childhood as a business transaction. Michael, wait! Barbara followed him. We know this is a shock, but we did care about you, in our own way. You have to understand the position we were in. He turned back, and whatever expression crossed his face made her stop mid-sentence. Did you ever want me? Even a little bit? Or was I always just income? Neither of them answered. That silence told him everything. Michael walked out the front door, leaving the cake with its dying candles, leaving the house he'd called home but had never truly been his, leaving the two people he'd called mom and dad but who had never really been his parents. The afternoon sun hit him like a wall, August heat shimmering off the pavement of Clearwater Lane. He started walking without direction, his sneakers slapping against the sidewalk that was cracked in familiar patterns he'd memorized over years of walking to school, walking to work, walking anywhere to avoid being home. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. Michael almost declined, but then something made him answer. Is this Michael Carter? A woman's voice, professional but warm. Yes. My name is Patricia Holloway. I'm with Holloway & Associates. I've been managing your trust fund since your biological parents passed away. I'm calling to inform you that as of today, you have full access to your inheritance. I'd like to schedule a meeting to go over the details. Would tomorrow morning work for you? Michael stopped walking. He was in front of the park where he used to swing as a kid, back when he still believed the Carters loved him, back before he'd learned to read the transactional nature of their every interaction. How much? He asked. A pause. I think it's better if we discuss this in person. How much? Patricia Holloway sighed. The current value of your trust, including investments and accumulated interest, is approximately $8.7 million. But there's more to discuss than just the money, Michael. Your parents left you letters, personal effects, and information about your family history. This isn't just about an inheritance. It's about understanding who you are. Michael sat down on a park bench, the metal hot enough to burn through his jeans. $8.7 million. His biological parents, people he couldn't remember, people whose faces he didn't know, had left him enough money to never worry about anything again. And the Carters had been receiving payments to raise him, payments they had apparently pocketed while telling him they couldn't afford name-brand cereal. Tomorrow morning, he said. What time? 10 o'clock. Our offices are downtown, Meridian Tower, 14th floor. Michael, I know this must be overwhelming. Is there someone you can talk to? Someone you trust? Michael looked back toward the house he'd just left. Not anymore. That night, Michael didn't go back to the Carter house. He checked into a motel on the edge of town, a place called the Starlight Inn, that probably last seen its glory days sometime in the 1970s. The room smelled like cigarette smoke, poorly masked by chemical freshener, and the air conditioning unit rattled like it was trying to shake itself apart, but it was his. He'd paid for it with money he'd earned, and nobody could tell him he was only there because he was profitable. He lay on the scratchy comforter and stared at the water-stained ceiling, trying to remember anything about his biological parents. There was nothing. His earliest memory was of the Carter house, of Barbara teaching him to tie his shoes on the front step, her voice patient, but somehow disconnected, like she was following instructions from a manual. He'd been maybe 4 years old. Had that kindness been real, or had it been part of the agreement? Meeting milestone, teach children basic self-care skills. Bonus payment unlocked. His phone buzzed again. 6 messages from Barbara, 2 from Richard. He deleted them without reading and opened his laptop instead, connecting to the motel's questionable Wi-Fi to search for information about himself.
Michael Carter Adoption Trust Fund yielded nothing useful. Private Adoption Agencies New York 2007 gave him hundreds of results, but nothing specific. He tried a different approach. Trust Fund Biological Parents Deceased 2007. The search results loaded slowly, and then he saw it. A news article from 18 years ago. Michael clicked the link, his heart pounding. The article was brief, the kind of thing that made page 6 of a local paper and then disappeared into the digital archives. Dr. James Carter and Dr. Sarah Carter, both 29, had died in a fire at a private research facility in upstate New York. They were survived by an infant son. The facility, which was not named, had been conducting classified research for an unnamed government contractor. Carter. His biological parents had been named Carter too, which meant either it was a massive coincidence or the people who'd adopted him had taken their name. Michael scrolled down, looking for more information, but the article ended abruptly. There were no follow-up stories, no investigation reports, nothing about what happened to the research facility or why the fire had started. He searched for Dr. James Carter, Researcher, 2007, and found academic papers, research citations, a brilliant career trajectory that had been building towards something significant. James Carter had specialized in materials science, specifically in something called metamaterials. Substances engineered at the molecular level to have properties that didn't exist in nature. Sarah Carter had been a physicist. Her work focused on energy transmission and storage. They'd been brilliant, they'd been young, and they'd died in a fire that the article mentioned only in passing, as if laboratory fires were common occurrences, as if two promising researchers burning to death was just an unfortunate workplace accident. Michael created a document and started taking notes, his journalism teacher's voice echoing in his head. When something doesn't make sense, follow the questions. Question 1. Why would two scientists with government contracts have an $8.7 million trust fund to leave their infant son? Question 2. Why would that trust fund include monthly payments to adoptive parents? Question 3. Why had the Carters, Richard and Barbara, taken their name? At 2 a.m., Michael finally fell asleep with his laptop still open, dreams filled with fire and equations he couldn't understand. Patricia Holloway's office was nothing like Michael expected. He'd imagined dark wood and leather chairs, the kind of old money aesthetic he'd seen in movies. Instead, the 14th floor of Meridian Tower was all glass and chrome, with views of the city stretching out in every direction. Patricia herself was younger than her phone voice suggested, maybe 40, with dark hair pulled back in a practical bun and eyes that seemed to see more than Michael was saying. "Coffee?" she offered, gesturing to a chair across from her desk. "Please." Michael sat down, trying not to look as nervous as he felt. He'd worn his best clothes, khakis and a button-down shirt he usually reserved for school presentations, but still felt underdressed for this space where even the receptionist wore designer labels. Patricia poured coffee from a French press, the rich aroma filling the office. "I'm going to be direct with you, Michael, because I think you deserve directness. Your biological parents were exceptional people. I only met them a few times, but they made an impression. They loved you very much. Then why am I only learning about them now? Because they wanted to protect you." Patricia slid a folder across the desk. "Everything in here is yours. Letters, photos, legal documents, information about their research. But before you read it, I need to explain the situation they were in when they died." Michael opened the folder with trembling hands. On top was a photo of a young couple standing in what looked like a laboratory, both wearing white coats, both smiling at the camera. The woman had Michael's eyes. The man had his jawline, his dark hair. These were his parents. These were the people who'd made him, who'd wanted him, who'd loved him enough to ensure he'd be taken care of even after they were gone. "Your father, James, was on the verge of a major breakthrough," Patricia continued.
He and your mother had developed a new type of energy storage system, something that could theoretically revolutionize power transmission. They were working under contract for a defense contractor, which meant their research was classified. But they were also concerned about how their work might be used. Concerned how? Patricia leaned back in her chair. They believed someone was sabotaging their research, stealing data. They'd made reports to their supervisors, but nothing was being done. A week before the fire, your father came to my firm, not to me personally, I was junior associate then, and set up the trust fund. He said if anything happened to them, you needed to be protected, you needed resources, and you needed to be hidden. Hidden from who? He didn't say. The senior partner who handled their case died 6 years ago, and his notes are minimal. But your parents structured the trust very specifically. The adoptive family couldn't know your biological parents' real net worth. They received only the monthly stipend, designed to seem like a standard trust fund arrangement for a child whose parents died with some savings. The bulk of the estate was sealed until your 18th birthday. Michael looked at the photo again. His mother was pregnant in the picture, her hand resting on a small bump. She'd been carrying him when this was taken. The fire, he said. It wasn't an accident. I don't know, Patricia said carefully. The official report said it was an electrical fault, but your father was worried enough to create an extensive backup plan. He didn't trust that you'd be safe if anyone knew who you really were or what you were worth. And the Carters? Richard and Barbara? Did they know any of this? No, the adoption was arranged through an intermediary agency. They were told only that you were the child of deceased parents who'd left money for your care. They signed standard agreements, submitted to background checks, and received their payments. They were never supposed to know the full scope of the trust. Michael's hands clenched on the folder. But they figured it out somehow. That's why they told me yesterday. They must have known it was about to end, that I was about to inherit everything, and they wanted, what, to justify themselves? To beat me to the truth? Patricia's expression softened. I sent them notification that you'd be inheriting the trust, as required by law. I imagined they panicked. The truth is, Michael, they were never meant to be your permanent family. Your parents wanted you raised in anonymity, away from anyone who might have been interested in their research. The Carters were supposed to be a temporary measure, a safe place for you to grow up. But then nothing happened, Michael finished. No one came looking for me. No one tried to claim me. So they just kept collecting the checks. Yes. Michael opened the folder fully. Inside were dozens of letters, each in an envelope marked with a different age. To Michael, age 5. To Michael, age 10. To Michael, age 13. To Michael, age 18. His parents had written to him for years into the future, messages for a son they knew they might never get to raise. There's also a key, Patricia said, sliding a small envelope across the desk. To a storage unit in Westfield. Your parents kept personal items there, things they wanted you to have but couldn't risk keeping in their home. Research notes, photos, their own childhood memories. Everything you might want to know about where you came from. Michael took the key. It was ordinary, the kind you could get copied at any hardware store, but it felt heavy with significance. What do I do now? Patricia smiled. Whatever you want. You're financially independent. You can go to any college, travel anywhere, do anything. But if I may offer advice, take time to read these letters. Get to know your parents through their own words. And be careful about who you trust with this information. Your father was paranoid for a reason, even if we don't know exactly what that reason was. Michael stood, clutching the folder and the key. Thank you for taking care of this, for taking care of me, even though we never met. Your parents paid us well to ensure you'd be protected, Patricia said, standing as well. But I would have done it anyway. They were good people, Michael. You come from good people. Don't let anyone make you forget that. The storage unit was in a facility that looked like it had been forgotten by time, a collection of corrugated metal buildings behind a fence that had more rust than paint. Michael used the key Patricia had given him on Unit 247, and the door rolled up with a screech of protesting metal. Inside was a space about 10 feet by 10 feet, filled with boxes and covered furniture. He started with the box labeled, "Michael, First Years." Inside were baby clothes, impossibly small, smelling faintly of cedar and mothballs. A soft blue blanket with his initials embroidered in the corner, MJC, Michael James Carter. He hadn't known his middle name. The Carters had never used it, had never mentioned it. There were photos, too. Him as a newborn, red-faced and wrapped in hospital blankets. Him at maybe 2 months, sleeping on someone's chest. Him at 3 months, the last photo before his parents died, held between them with both James and Sarah's hands supporting him, their faces radiating joy and fear in equal measure. Michael sat on the concrete floor and opened the letter marked, "To Michael, age 18. Dear Michael, if you're reading this, then your mother and I are gone, and you've reached adulthood without us. I can't tell you how much that breaks my heart, not the being gone part, because I don't believe we will be. I believe we'll be with you in ways that matter, but the missing it. Missing your first words, your first steps, your first day of school, your first heartbreak, your first triumph. We wanted to be there for all of it. But if we're gone, it means the precautions we took weren't enough. It means someone wanted to stop our research badly enough to kill us for it. And it means you've been growing up away from the life we would have given you, which was unavoidable, but still tragic. I need you to know some things. First, you were loved. You were wanted, desperately wanted. And even though we may not have been there, we thought about you every day. Your mother used to sit in your nursery and talk to you about her day, about her research, about her dreams for your future. She wanted you to be curious, to question everything, to never accept easy answers. I wanted you to be kind, to understand that intelligence means nothing without compassion, that the point of knowledge is to help people. Second, you come from a legacy of thinkers. Your grandfather on my side was a mathematician who worked on classified projects during the Cold War. Your grandmother on your mother's side was one of the first women to get a PhD in physics from MIT. You have brilliance in your blood. But more importantly, you have their integrity. They both believed that knowledge should serve humanity, not harm it. Third, be careful. I don't say this to scare you, but to prepare you. The work your mother and I were doing, it's important. It could change the world. Clean energy, wireless power transmission, an end to fossil fuel dependence. But there are people who benefit from the current system, who profit from scarcity and control. They didn't want our research to succeed. If they couldn't steal it, they wanted it destroyed. I've left you comfortable financially. I've left you information. But I've also left you a choice. You can take the money, live your life, forget all of this and be happy. Or you can look deeper. There are research notes in this storage unit, encrypted files on drives that are still being held by our lawyers. There are questions we didn't get to answer. If you choose to look deeper, be smart. Trust carefully. Remember that the fire that took us was ruled an accident, but accidents don't usually involve locked exits and disabled sprinkler systems. Someone made sure we didn't get out. Someone wanted us silenced. But I don't want you to live in fear. I want you to live fully, boldly, with the knowledge that you are capable of extraordinary things. Be more than we were. Be better. And know that whatever you choose, whatever path you take, we are proud of you. With all my love. Dad.
Michael read the letter 3 times, his father's voice becoming real in his mind, concerned, protective, hopeful, despite everything. The implications were staggering. His parents hadn't just died in an accident. They'd been murdered, and someone had covered it up, had made it look like an unfortunate workplace incident, had ensured that no one asked too many questions. He moved to the next box, labeled Research Materials. Inside were hard drives, dozens of them, each labeled with dates and project codes. There were also notebooks, his parents' handwriting filling pages with equations and diagrams that meant nothing to Michael, but had clearly meant everything to them. One notebook had a sticky note on the front. Michael, if you want to understand, start here. Love, Mom. He opened it carefully. The first page was dated 3 months before his birth. Project Aurora, Day 156. We've done it. James confirmed the calculations this morning. The metamaterial matrix is stable at room temperature and power transmission efficiency is at 97.3%. That's beyond what anyone thought possible. This isn't just a breakthrough, it's a revolution. But I'm scared. We reported the data theft to Donovan again, and again he dismissed our concerns. 3 external drives have gone missing from the lab in the past month. Our backup files are being accessed at night when we're not here. Someone is copying our work, and management doesn't care, or worse, they're complicit. James wants to go public. Take our research to a university, publish in peer-reviewed journals, make it open source so no one can weaponize it or suppress it. But our contracts forbid it. Everything we've done belongs to Archon Defense Systems. Even if we quit, even if we try to publish, they'll sue us into oblivion and bury the research anyway. We're trapped. And now I'm pregnant, which makes everything more complicated and more important. This baby, our son, he's going to grow up in a world we're trying to change. But what if we don't succeed? What if Archon or someone else makes sure this technology never sees daylight? What kind of world are we bringing him into? James says we have to try, that we have to believe the good guys can win. I want to believe him. Michael kept reading, page after page of his mother's hopes and fears, her brilliant mind working through problems that were scientific and personal and ethical. She'd been worried about him before he was even born, trying to figure out how to protect a child while also trying to save the world. The final entry was dated 2 days before the fire. James is making arrangements. He won't tell me the details because he says it's safer if I don't know, but I know it involves Michael. He's setting up a trust, finding a family, creating a safety net. He thinks something bad is going to happen. I think he's right. If I'm being honest, I'm terrified. Not for me, I made my choices, but for our baby. He's only 3 months old. He should be worried about eating and sleeping and when Mom will pick him up, not caught in the middle of corporate espionage and potential murder. But maybe that's the point. Maybe we make these sacrifices so he doesn't have to, so he can grow up free, without the weight of our mistakes. James put together research materials, encrypted everything, left instructions. If we don't make it, Michael will have options. He'll have knowledge. He'll have the choice we don't have. I love our son more than I ever knew it was possible to love anyone. And I love James for being brave enough to do what needs to be done, even though it terrifies both of us. Tomorrow, we're presenting our concerns to the board of directors, going over Donovan's head. It's risky, but it's our last chance to stop this from the inside. If this is my last entry, if something happens, I need to write this. Michael, be brave, be curious, be kind, and never let anyone convince you that knowledge should be hoarded or weaponized. Your father and I believed in a better world. We hope you will too. The notebook ended there. 2 days later, the fire had killed both of them. Michael closed the notebook carefully and set it aside. His hands were shaking. For 18 years,
He'd believed his parents were just names on a death certificate, anonymous faces, people who'd had the bad luck to die young. Now they were real. They were brilliant and idealistic and scared, and they died trying to do the right thing. And someone had killed them for that.
Someone at Archon Defense Systems, or someone who didn't want their research to be made public, or someone who wanted to steal their work without interference. His parents had known the danger and presented their concerns to the board anyway, and 48 hours later, they were dead. Michael pulled out his phone and searched for Archon Defense Systems. The company still existed, larger than ever, a major defense contractor with government projects on 3 continents. Their CEO was a man named Warren Blackwell, a former Air Force general who'd taken the company from mid-level government contractor to industry leader. Under his leadership, Archon had developed advanced weapon systems, surveillance technology, and, Michael's breath caught, energy solutions for military applications. They'd stolen it. They'd taken his parents' research, the breakthrough that could have changed the world, and they'd weaponized it instead. Used it for military projects, kept it classified, made sure nobody knew that clean, wireless energy transmission was possible. Michael looked around the storage unit at the accumulated evidence of his parents' lives. The baby clothes they'd bought him, the letters they'd written him, the research they'd died protecting. Patricia had said he could do anything now, go anywhere, be anyone. But his parents hadn't raised him, not directly. They'd raised him through their choices, through the letters they'd left, through the example of their lives and deaths. They'd been people who believed in doing the right thing even when it was dangerous. They'd believed knowledge should help people, not harm them. Michael made a decision. He would finish what they'd started. He would understand their research, and he would make sure the world knew what Archon Defense Systems had done. Michael spent 3 days in that storage unit, leaving only to get food and sleep in cheap motels where nobody asked questions. He worked his way through his parents' research, using his laptop to decrypt the files his father had left on the hard drives. The password had been his birthday, a choice that was both sentimental and practical, since only Michael would know to try it. The research was complex, full of advanced physics and material science that stretched the limits of his high school education. But his mother had been a natural teacher, and her notebooks didn't just show results, they showed the process, the questions she'd asked, the dead ends she'd explored, the moment of breakthrough when theory became reality. Project Aurora had been focused on metamaterials, artificially structured materials with properties that didn't exist in nature. His parents had developed a matrix of these materials that could capture, store, and transmit electrical energy wirelessly, with almost no loss to resistance or heat. The implications were staggering. No more power lines, no more batteries, no more fossil fuel plants burning coal and gas to generate electricity. Clean energy could be transmitted anywhere to anyone without infrastructure. It would have changed everything. But his mother's notes also showed the potential military applications. Wireless power meant you could charge weapons in the field, power drones indefinitely, create directed energy weapons that didn't need conventional ammunition. The same technology that could have liberated humanity from fossil fuel dependence could also create a new generation of warfare. That was the dilemma his parents had faced. They'd created something beautiful that could be twisted into something terrible. Michael found video files on one of the drives, dated the week before the fire. His father appeared on screen, sitting in what looked like their home office, late-night darkness visible through the window behind him. "Michael," his father said, and Michael's heart clenched hearing his voice for the first time. "Your mother and I have made discoveries that could change the world, but we've also attracted the wrong kind of attention.
Tomorrow we're meeting with Archon's board of directors to demand that Project Aurora be released to civilian researchers. We're going to threaten to go public if they refuse. It's dangerous, we know that, but it's the right thing to do. James Carter ran a hand through his hair, a gesture Michael recognized because he did it himself when nervous. I need you to understand something. We could have kept quiet. We could have taken Archon's money, let them do whatever they wanted with our research, and lived comfortable lives. But your mother and I didn't become scientists to help build better weapons. We became scientists because we believed knowledge could make the world better, fairer, cleaner. We believed in progress that helped everyone, not just the powerful.
He leaned toward the camera. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Maybe the board will listen. Maybe they'll agree to declassify the research, make it available to universities and independent researchers. Or maybe they'll try to silence us. If it's the latter, if something happens to us, I need you to know that we made this choice deliberately. We knew the risks, and we decided our work was more important than our safety. His father's voice broke slightly. But you're more important than anything. That's why we've made arrangements. That's why you'll be protected, hidden, given resources. Because even though we're fighting for a better world, we're fighting for it for you, for the future you'll inherit. If we don't make it, if you're watching this years from now, please don't let our work die with us. Please don't let them bury what we discovered. The world needs clean energy, Michael. The world needs to move past fossil fuels and corporate control of basic resources. We were so close to making that happen. James wiped his eyes. Your mother wants to record something too, but she's putting you to bed. She sings to you every night, did you know that? The same lullaby her mother sang to her. I hope whoever raises you sings to you too. I hope they love you like we love you. I hope they tell you every day that you're brilliant and kind and capable of anything. He stood up, reaching toward the camera. I have to go, but, Michael, be brave. Question everything. And if you ever get the chance, finish what we started. Make sure the world knows the truth. Make sure our work means something. I love you, son. More than you'll ever know. The video ended. Michael sat in the storage unit with tears running down his face, grieving for parents he'd never known, but now understood completely. They'd been idealists who'd paid the ultimate price for their ideals, and they'd trusted him to carry on their legacy. Michael opened a new window in his laptop and started researching. He needed to understand more about Archon defense systems, about Warren Blackwell, about what had happened in the 18 years since his parents died. He needed to know if the research had been used, suppressed, or buried. What he found was disturbing. Archon had released several proprietary energy solutions for military use over the past decade, all classified, all described in vague terms in their investor reports. They'd also fought aggressively against renewable energy legislation, lobbying heavily to maintain fossil fuel subsidies and prevent clean energy mandates. A company that possessed the technology to revolutionize power transmission was actively working to suppress the energy transition. It made sense from a business perspective. Archon didn't make money from solving the energy crisis. They made money from military contracts, and those contracts thrived on scarcity, on continued dependence on oil and gas, on the geopolitical conflicts that came from controlling fossil fuel resources. He found articles about Warren Blackwell, profiles that painted him as a visionary leader, a patriot, a man who dedicated his life to American security. But he also found a smaller story, buried in a business journal from 12 years ago, about Blackwell's rapid rise to CEO. He'd been promoted immediately after successfully concluding a problematic research project that posed potential security risks.
The timeline matched. James and Sarah Carter had died. Their research had been classified, and Warren Blackwell had been rewarded for it. Michael's phone buzzed. A text from Patricia Holloway. "Michael, I hope you're doing okay. I wanted to let you know that someone has been asking questions about you. A private investigator hired by an unnamed client. I refused to provide information, but I wanted you to be aware. Please be careful." Michael's hands went cold. Someone was looking for him. Someone who'd learned he existed, who knew about the inheritance, who was interested enough to hire a PI. The question was, who? And why now, after 18 years of silence? He looked at his parents' research scattered across the floor of the storage unit. This wasn't just about money or inheritance anymore. This was about finishing what they'd started, exposing what had been hidden, and making sure their deaths meant something. But he couldn't do it alone. He was 18 years old, barely graduated from high school with no experience in investigations or corporate espionage or dealing with defense contractors. He needed help. He needed someone who understood how to uncover the truth when powerful people wanted it buried. Michael thought about his journalism teacher, Mr. Harrison, who'd always encouraged him to ask questions and follow leads. He thought about his best friend, David Chen, who was brilliant with computers and had talked about becoming a cybersecurity expert. He thought about his classmate, Emma Rodriguez, who'd written a devastating expose on school board corruption that had gotten 2 administrators fired. These were people he trusted, people who might believe him, people who might be willing to help. But asking for help meant putting them at risk. His parents had died for this research. A private investigator was asking questions. Whatever Michael was walking into, it was dangerous enough that his father had felt the need to hide him for 18 years. Still, Michael couldn't do this alone. And maybe that was the point his parents had been trying to make, that fighting for what's right wasn't a solo endeavor. It required community, trust, people willing to stand together, even when it was scary. Michael gathered up the most important files, copied them to a new encrypted drive, and locked the storage unit behind him. He had decisions to make and people to talk to, but first, he needed to understand exactly what he was up against. He drove to the public library, choosing a computer terminal in the back corner where he could work without being observed. Using techniques David had taught him about anonymous browsing, Michael created a secure email account and began drafting messages to the people he trusted. To Mr. Harrison, he wrote about discovering his parents' research and needing journalistic guidance on how to verify and publish information that powerful people wanted hidden. To David, he outlined the technical aspects of the encrypted files and asked if he'd be willing to help analyze the data. To Emma, he explained the corporate conspiracy angle and asked for her investigative instincts. He didn't send the emails immediately. Instead, he sat back and thought about what his father had said in that video. Be brave, question everything, and if you ever get the chance, finish what we started. Michael realized he'd been thinking about this wrong. He didn't need to expose Archon defense systems all at once, didn't need to go to war with a multi-billion-dollar corporation armed only with old research files and righteous anger. What he needed was to do what his parents had tried to do. Make the research public, get it into the hands of people who could verify it, replicate it, and build on it. He opened a new browser window and searched for university researchers working on clean energy and metamaterials. He found Dr. Elena Vasquez at MIT, whose published papers on wireless energy transmission showed she was asking the same questions his parents had asked. He found Dr. Robert Chen at Stanford, whose work on advanced materials was cutting edge, but still years behind what his parents had achieved. Michael composed careful emails to both researchers, introducing himself as the son of James and Sarah Carter, explaining that he'd inherited their research materials, and asking if they'd be interested in reviewing the data. He didn't mention Archon.
He didn't mention murder or corporate conspiracy. He simply offered to share his parents' work with scientists who might be able to continue it. Then he sent the emails to Mr. Harrison, David, and Emma. If he was going to do this, he needed his team. He needed people who cared about him, who believed in truth, who weren't afraid to ask difficult questions. The responses came within hours. Mr. Harrison wrote back immediately. "Michael, this sounds extraordinary and potentially dangerous. Let's meet tomorrow. Come to my house, not the school. Bring everything you have." David's response was characteristically enthusiastic. "Dude, this is literally the coolest thing ever. I'm in. When do we start?"
Emma's message was more measured, but equally committed. "I've been researching Archon for a story on defense contractor lobbying. I think you're onto something big. We should talk." Over the next 2 weeks, Michael's makeshift team assembled the pieces. Mr. Harrison helped him craft a narrative that was factual, verifiable, and compelling. David broke the encryption on some of the more complex files, revealing additional research his parents had completed, but never published. Emma dug into Archon's corporate history, finding connections between Warren Blackwell and the officials who'd ruled his parents' deaths accidental. Dr. Vasquez at MIT responded with stunned enthusiasm, confirming that the research was not only legitimate, but represented a genuine breakthrough. She offered to replicate the experiments, to verify the findings, to bring in other researchers who could help. Within days, Michael's parents' work was being examined by some of the brightest minds in material science. But Michael also received warning signs. The private investigator Patricia had mentioned showed up at the Carter house, asking Richard and Barbara about Michael's whereabouts. Someone hacked David's personal email, though they found nothing because David had anticipated the attempt. Emma received an anonymous message suggesting she drop her research into Archon if she valued her college prospects. Michael realized they were running out of time. Archon knew he existed, knew he had the research, and was taking steps to contain him. He needed to go public before they could stop him. Working with Mr. Harrison, Michael crafted an article detailing his parents' research, their suspicions about Archon, the circumstances of their deaths, and the evidence he'd uncovered. They submitted it simultaneously to 3 major outlets: the New York Times, the Washington Post, and a prominent scientific journal. They also sent copies of the research files to 24 university scientists and posted encrypted versions on multiple file-sharing sites. Michael wrote a personal statement to accompany the release. "My parents, Dr. James Carter and Dr. Sarah Carter, died 18 years ago trying to give the world clean, accessible energy. Their research was stolen and buried by people who profit from scarcity and control. I'm releasing their work now because I believe, as they did, that knowledge should serve humanity. This isn't about revenge or money. It's about finishing what they started. It's about making sure their deaths meant something. And it's about building the better world they dreamed of for all of us." 3 days later, the story broke. Major news outlets ran it simultaneously. Scientists began replicating his parents' experiments. Government investigators announced they were reopening the inquiry into the laboratory fire. Warren Blackwell was called to testify before Congress. Michael watched it unfold from Patricia Holloway's office, surrounded by the people who'd helped him: Mr. Harrison, David, Emma, and Patricia herself. His phone wouldn't stop buzzing with interview requests, but he ignored them all. This wasn't about him becoming famous. It was about his parents finally getting the recognition they deserved. "They'd be proud of you," Patricia said quietly. Michael looked at the photo of his parents he now carried everywhere. Young, brilliant people who'd believed they could change the world. "I hope so. I really hope so." Outside the window, the city stretched endlessly, full of people who might one day benefit from clean energy, from his parents' sacrifice, from the choice to speak truth to power. Michael didn't know what came next. College, probably. More investigations, certainly. A life spent finishing what his parents started. But for now, he'd done what his father asked. He'd been brave. He'd questioned everything, and he'd made sure their work meant something. That was enough. Thank you for listening to Michael's story, a journey of truth, courage, and the unbreakable bond between parents and child, even across the divide of death. If stories like this move you, if you believe in the power of uncovering hidden truths and standing up against injustice, then subscribe to our channel. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss another story. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, someone who's searching for their own truth, someone who needs to be reminded that even when the world feels dark, courage can light the way. Subscribe now, because every story matters and every voice deserves to be heard. We'll see you in the next one.